Getting the first 100 customers for your own clothing brand is a huge milestone, but it's not an easy task. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the specific tactics that I employed with my own clothing brand to deliver just that. Let's do it. So maybe you're thinking about launching your own clothing brand, or perhaps you've launched it recently and are struggling to get the sales that you imagined. Maybe you're getting the odd sale here and there, but perhaps only to friends and family and maybe the odd person that you've not met before. So the first thing I want to say to you is be patient, be kind to yourself. It's really difficult to get your first 100 customers, and I really underestimated how difficult it was going to be. It took me a lot longer than I imagined, and it was quite a difficult pill to swallow. I think unless you've already got a really strong following on social media, or you've got a significant amount of cash to invest in paid advertising, then it's a difficult process, and it can be quite a slow and frustrating process, and doubts creep in throughout that to the point where you begin to question everything that you're doing. So I think first and foremost, I want to say to you, be patient. Give yourself the space and time to get to that 100 customer target. It's likely to take longer than you think. It took me in the region of about 6 months to get my first 100 customers, people that I didn't know before launching the brand, placing an order through the website. So that just gives you a sense, some sort of benchmark for where you are with your own brand. Perhaps you've been living and breathing your clothing brand now for months, if not years, to get it to this point, whether you've launched it or not. And it can be really demoralizing to get to the point of actually launching and then for people to not flock to your website as you imagined and dreamt about. But don't lose faith. How many times have you bought into a clothing brand that you knew very little about? It just doesn't happen. It takes time for customers to become familiar with what you're offering in terms of the brand and the product, and it takes a number of touch points for an individual customer to be confident enough and bought into the brand sufficiently to actually part with their hard-earned cash. This was the lesson that I'd learned. Prior to launching my own clothing brand, a cycling apparel brand, I'd spent 2 or 3 years maybe on Instagram, just as a normal person, cyclist, not selling the brand at all, but just building up a bit of a following within the niche that I was expecting to be targeting when the time came to launch my actual clothing brand. So by the time I'd launched, I'd perhaps built up maybe 400 or 500 followers, and I was following a similar number of people myself. And I'd built up some good connections during that time, people that I was interacting with, just as you would yourself, just as a friend and somebody that's interested in the same sort of thing. And I think when I then came to launch the brand, I foolishly expected that tens, if not hundreds of those people would flock to my clothing brand, see the hard work that I'd put into it, want to support me, and I'd start seeing the orders come rolling in from them and probably from their followers as well. I genuinely thought I was going to launch the brand and see tens and hundreds of orders within a matter of months, and I was wrong, and it was a hard pill to swallow. The truth is, looking back on it now, what I launched was pretty poor, and in fact, I'm still not happy with what I have at the moment. But you can only work with what you've got, whether that's time, money, or the skill set, and you have to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of what you've got and build on those over time. If you've not got a lot of time or a lot of money, you have to accept that and work within the limitations that are around you. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself under undue stress and pressure to deliver something that's just not realistic within the timescale that you've perhaps set yourself. And herein lies another important lesson, I think, and that is to try and learn the skill of resilience. It's going to be harder and perhaps take longer than you imagined. There will be things that are beyond your control, so try and accept that and move on and deal with the things that are within your control. There will be days when you are struggling and demoralized with a lack of sales, but there are still challenges around you. And during these times, people will question what it is that you've started. They will want to protect you from the risk that you've taken, particularly if you've invested financially and you're putting a lot of time into this. And this comes back to understanding what the key motivation is for starting your clothing brand and keeping that very close to you. If you haven't already seen it, after watching this video, I suggest watching the Should You Launch Your Own Clothing Brand video, where I go into a lot more detail about your motivating force and what to expect when launching your own clothing brand. I'll leave a link in the description below. Okay, so we talked a bit there about mindset. What about the actual practicalities? Step one, and at the core of everything you do, needs to be a very clearly defined brand concept, which you can communicate consistently across your product and your marketing activities, whether that be your packaging, your website, your paid advertising, your communications online, or perhaps something that you're doing offline locally, for example, as well. There are no shortcuts when it comes to building your brand concept. I really encourage you to take the time early on to really get it nailed, because once you've got that clearly defined, everything else cascades from it naturally, whether it's the products that you create or the marketing that you put around that. Maybe the brand concept that you've got at the moment is already very clear in your mind. I thought it was for me too when I started. VÉLOKInd was designed to be a sustainable cycling brand inspired by the freedom of being out cycling. However, when I really immersed myself in it, I realised that there was the potential for the brand concept to be something much deeper than that. Yes, it was going to continue to be a brand that was inspired by the freedom of riding, but that freedom of riding was then used as an inspiration for a deeper level within the brand. That deeper level was to encourage fellow cyclists to discover freedom beyond the road, and that was all about encouraging people to live as their full selves in order that they can pursue their true purpose and find fulfillment. Something that resonated very deeply with me based upon the last sort of 20 years of having worked in an environment where I wasn't fulfilled and I wasn't living as my full self. So it just allowed me to sort of really differentiate the brand and offer something a little bit different, and hopefully something more meaningful as well, which customers could value and resonate with. If you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button. Thanks a lot. Step two then, once you've nailed the brand concept, is to showcase your products. And for most people, that's going to involve a website. Certainly it was for me. I use the Shopify platform. There are obviously other e-commerce platforms available, such as Big Cartel and Wix. I haven't tried them, can't claim to have tried them, but Shopify has certainly done everything that I've needed it to do up until this point. I spend £19 a month for their service. In addition to that, they will take 2% and 25p from every transaction, which is fairly reasonable. In addition to being able to check out using just a standard credit card, customers also have the facility to check out using Google Pay, Apple Pay, Amazon and PayPal. So you name it, checking out is not a difficult process at all. I've never had any issues at all with Shopify. For anyone that's interested, when I first launched the website, I used Shopify's free Dawn theme, which was good enough to get me going. But really, your website is, it's your gateway to the world, isn't it? If you had a physical store, you'd be spending thousands of pounds a month on rent and rates. So I quickly realised, probably after about 2 months, that I wanted to invest a bit more to get one of Shopify's premium themes. So I paid a one-off fee of £300 to get their premium theme. That just gave me a lot more functionality, and it gave me a more professional looking website. If you're interested in seeing a more in-depth video on the Shopify theme that I use and some of the alternatives in and around that, drop me a note in the comments below and I'll have a look at it for you. I really can't emphasize just how important it is that you are super detailed when it comes to your own website. There is absolutely no room for errors. You've got to double check all the spelling, all the grammar, make sure everything looks absolutely spot on. We are operating in such a highly competitive environment that customers will pick up on things like that. And small errors of that kind, spelling mistakes, anything silly like that will get picked up on, and it's just a reflection of how you operate your business and the brand. If you're making mistakes like that on your shop, what's to say it's going to turn up in the post when somebody's ordered a product? It just doesn't fill customers with confidence. So anything like that, they see that, they're going to bounce straight off the website. Linked to the website is, of course, photography, and you've got two broad types of photography. You've got product photography and you've got lifestyle photography. First of all, product photography, hugely important, obviously, that you display your products in the best possible way. The easy way of doing that is to create mock-ups, so to use graphic design software to overlay a design onto a t-shirt template. You see lots of brands doing this, and it is a very credible way of doing it. For me personally, I've chosen to photograph all my products in the flesh, so I will hang them on the hangers like we've got here, set up with the kit that I've got around me, and photograph them. And what I hope that will achieve is give the brand a more authentic and organic feel. You know, I am printing all these products myself and photographing them, so it's clear for people to see, all being well, that I'm not using a print on demand service. You know, these products are printed by hand by me, photographed and packed by me, and they can see that. So hopefully it's a way of me differentiating my brand versus a lot of other brands that are out there in the marketplace. I recognise this isn't for everyone, and it's, you know, it is hugely demanding on my time to get a decent quality photograph with a t-shirt that doesn't necessarily behave or hang right. You know, I've got to pin the products to try and make them all right. It is very, very time consuming, and what you've got to think about is, you know, I could easily spend a couple of hours photographing a couple of t-shirts. That's 2 hours that I can't spend engaging with customers on social, or, you know, doing something else. You know, there's a trade-off with everything that you do. Every decision that you make involves a trade-off. You do one thing, it means you can't spend time doing another. So these are the sort of decisions that you'll have to make for your own brand. But they'll be your decisions, and, you know, you can make those, and if it doesn't work, you can tweak that. I've thought myself about how I can tweak my own photography in order that I can spend less time on it but still get, you know, 90% of the benefit. The second type of photography, and perhaps the most important, is quality lifestyle photography, which is images of your target customer wearing your apparel in the manner and the locations that you intend it to be worn. This type of photography really brings your brand to life. So the more of this you can push into your social media channels, your website, your email marketing, the more your customers will be reassured that you have built something credible that other people are wearing. And if people can see that other people are wearing it, it becomes less of a risk for them to buy into that brand themselves if they like what they're seeing. You know, this is something that I've really struggled with over the last 6 months or so. It's been a real weakness of my brand. I've got mates, but they're all of an age where they've got young families, living busy lives. You know, everybody's working, and it's very difficult to find time to, you know, conduct a modelling shoot of any sort, particularly if you're not living next door to people. So it's been one of those tasks that kind of fell into the too difficult to do box. I'm not great at always asking for help. So what I did in the early stages, you know, I was modelling the stuff myself, and I'm the first to admit I'm no model. I was able to get by and get some products photographed for the launch of the website, but ultimately it was just a website that was full of me wearing my own stuff, which, you know, wasn't ideal and wasn't what I ever wanted for the brand. But, you know, you do what you do to get things started. Things are never going to be ideal. So, you know, if you waited for things to be perfect, you'd never do anything. But I really struggled here, and, you know, eventually I've found a solution to that. I'm going to do a separate video on how I went about that, because I think there's some really valuable information there that I can share with you, and some possible learnings that you can take for your own brand. But I've worked my way through that now, and if you were to look at the website, you'll see other models wearing the gear, and, you know, I think I've found a solution now. It was a real barrier for me, which I struggled to overcome. And it sounds silly, but, you know, I imagine you'll probably have areas of your brand and your business that you're less comfortable working on than others. And when you're not comfortable, the temptation is to resist and do less of that, where in actual fact, those are the things that you need to solve and double down on more than anything. So you've nailed your brand concept, created a range of products centered around that, and also created a website which you can sell from. Step 3 then is communicating with your target audience, and you've got 2 broad options for that. You've got organic, unpaid advertising or communication, and you've got paid advertising, the likes of Facebook and Instagram ads. I've tried both. I've dabbled with paid advertising over the last 6 months or so on Facebook, Instagram, Google Shopping, Google Search. I've not done anything on TikTok, not really my target market at the moment, or I am looking to explore that. Pinterest, not done anything there, but again, another one that I'm looking to explore. I've learned a lot through dabbling in that. I consumed a lot of content in order to get to the position where I can actually create some ads which I think are credible. But what I've found is not one of my first 100 customers has been directly attributed to that paid advertising, and I think that just speaks to the power of organic communication and what you can do on social for very little cost in the early stages of creating your brand. So if all 100 of my first non-friends and family customers came as a result of organic engagement, how did I do it? Well, quite simply, I did it by developing genuine relationships with people. And I think this comes back to why you've created the brand that hopefully you've created or in the process of creating in the first place. I've created a brand that is based around cycling apparel because I have a deep passion and love for cycling and being out cycling. So it just makes sense for me to create a brand that's built around that. What I think that does is it takes the pressure away from making the sale, because in a social media setting, it's just the community that I would be interacting with probably anyway, just through my natural course of life, even if I wasn't or didn't have a product or a brand to sell. And that takes the pressure off the sale. You can just be in the space doing what you're doing, and hopefully people can see and value and find some entertainment in what you're doing, and they will follow you for that. And what I've done as a result of that, I've developed some good relationships with people, some lots of exchanges with people, and ultimately they've wanted to support me in what I'm doing, which has been fantastic. It's great when people really do that. I'm so grateful to those people that have supported me and taken a punt on an unknown brand. It would be very simple to just spend their money on other established brands, and I'm really grateful that they've on occasions chosen not to do that, and those people know who they are because I've thanked them, and hopefully they can see how grateful I am for that. And I think this comes back to why you've created the brand in the first place. You need to be in this for the long haul, because as I've done, I've recognized that I'm not going to be financially independent on the brand in a matter of months as I'd first hoped and wished. I'm in it for the long haul now, so people can see that. People can see the amount of work that I'm putting in. I'm not pretending to be the finished article by any means. I've not gone down the fake it till you make it kind of route, just because that just doesn't sit with me. That's not why I've created the brand. The brand is around inspiring positive change in people, encouraging people to pursue their true purpose and find fulfillment, live as their full selves. And it's only right that I demonstrate that to people. I live and breathe that through the brand that I'm creating. So it's just about being authentic, really, and hopefully people can see the value in that and appreciate that. And I think if you can do the same with your own brand, people will also see that, and they will want to reward you at some point. It might not be in the first week or month, but if they see this enough and they can see what's behind the brand, as people can see with my brand, they can see me printing the products, they can see me packing it. I'm not pretending it's anything different to that. At some point, hopefully it'll be more sophisticated than that, and hopefully people will still be following me at that point, and we'll be able to look back together and with fond memories of how things began and how things have evolved. I think another way of looking at this is, if you're very thoughtful about your approach, your language and tone of the content that you're producing on social media, what you can do is very carefully weave your brand into the fabric of the subculture. The subculture that you are probably creating a brand for already exists. I thought initially that I was creating a community, whereas in actual fact what I'm doing is creating a brand that serves an existing community. So I think what you can do first and foremost is build a content strategy that entertains and inspires and maybe educates people, but in a very gentle way, because build those genuine relationships. And I believe that further down the line you'll be rewarded for that. They say that it can take up to 10 individual touch points with a customer before they're ready to convert and actually order online. So with that in mind, accept that it's going to take some time. Take the pressure off yourself if you can, assuming you're not financially dependent on this project, and start building these relationships one person at a time, and enjoy that process. When people eventually see that your intentions are honourable and you're not pushing the hard sell, that you're in this community because it's a space that you love being in, I believe that they will reward you eventually, and that's ultimately how I got my first 100 customers. So I wish you well on your own journey to your first 100 customers, and then the second 100, and then the third 100. Enjoy the process if you can. Try to take the pressure off yourself if it's at all possible. If you're able to follow through on this process with a quality product that's great value for money, that's delivered on time with great service and communication, then you'll be rewarded with a satisfied customer. Don't forget that behind every satisfied customer is a real person just like you and me, with real needs and emotions. It's a great opportunity once you've made the sale to show your appreciation, to thank them, and to try and build that relationship for the long term. Try build some long-term loyalty with that customer, and what you'll be able to use that for is leverage to create new customers as well. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like below and consider subscribing. And if you like this one, check out this video here where we talk about how to build a really solid foundation for your brand. Thanks a lot.